Hello world, I am sick, so if I sound a little bleh, don't mind me. If I'm a little slow on the videos for a couple days, that's why. But anyways, I wanted to go over a few more things with our hunger system, and then we're also going to move into kind of introducing the interface today. First of all, really quick, we had moved our stamina, where our stamina bar was updating, our hunger bar. Where our hunger bar was updating, we had moved that into our update hunger function, so it's not running on tick. Let's just go ahead and move over our stamina one too. So again, you make sure you just select that stamina bar. We're in our UI here. For the get stamina bar percent, remove binding, go into the graph. Just let's go in there and let's just copy this really quick. We don't really need that, but actually, yeah, we don't need that. It's fine. Right click it over here on the function, delete, compile, save. In the main, not the raptor, but the main character class, open that up. Then we go to update stamina. Okay. So for our update stamina, let's see where we want to add this. We want to add this kind of after all of this stuff has happened. So let's actually take this, drag it over, and let's do another sequence. So sequence. So do all of this junk here. Then when you're done doing all that junk, we're going to get our controller, get the UI off of that, get our oops, okay, I swear I can type stamina bar. Where's our stamina bar? Let's see, did we set that as a variable? Alright, stam bar, that's why I'm typing stamina and stam. Stam bar. And then we're going to do set percent. Okay. And then just drag, let's see, drag it up here. So then we're going to get our stamina. If you want to organize like how I have this here, these are just put into categories. So if you click on like sitting here and you go over to category, you can just type in, let's see, actions, and you'll see it'll make a new category that I can move other things into. So now if I move, click interact object, I can use this drop down, and there's my actions I just added. So it kind of helps with organization because you're gonna have a lot. Right. So let's do our max stamina. Get that. Get our current stamina. Divide that. And then we're just gonna drag that into there, and that'll update with the stamina so that it's not having to run on every single tick. I mean, it's gonna be close to that, but every little bit of optimization counts, right? I know we don't have any code in here, so it's, it's nice and clean. It's just the UI so far. Okay. Alright, so next, why don't we go into our... So I was thinking at the end of the last video with our eat animation, since we're doing an action that does eat and shows an animation, it's right here, action, and then we also have, gosh, I have a lot of these open. And then we're also doing a movement that has to eat. We don't want to call that notify twice. That'd be bad. So I actually went in here into our animations. Not that one, this one. Animations. And I just took the eat animation. Now we're gonna actually make a custom movement animation to go with eat. But for now, I just took it, right clicked on the eat animation, duplicated, and I renamed that new one. I just added movement at the end, and then I just deleted the notifies. You just click on it and hit the delete key, because we don't need it twice. We're gonna actually make a special animation just for this to go with the movement, but that's what for now that'll stop that duplication issue if you're having that. And then back in the movement eat, just replace the eat animation with that movement one that doesn't have the notifies. Okay. Alright, so let's go, let's add the food item where it would spawn the food item in his mouth. You kind of see a preview over here that I have. where it'll spawn that food item in his mouth when he eats, so it looks like he's actually eating a piece of something. And from there, we're going to break off and we're going to start doing some interface stuff. But I wanted to just chuck that in there because it's actually pretty easy to do. So let's go into our food item. Okay, in our food item, on consume, let's do an overlap check here. So I think I added this here. And this is again just always checking to kind of do these little gates that kind of ensure we're not running code we don't need to. It's just always good for optimization. So just you can drag off of you can get your sphere, which is your collision. Just grab that and drag that in. Just do is overlapping actor, and for the other actor, it's gonna be the character. And then just do an if statement. You could just do if. And if we are, then you want to make sure that we can eat, because if we're not still overlapping by the time we have that bite, then the character for whatever reason is no longer in the range to bite and they shouldn't be able to get that food. Okay, so next why don't we go into our, let's go to our, let's compile and save that first. Next, let's go into our actual character, Raptor's skeleton here. So we get the skeletal mesh here. We got the skeleton, skeletal mesh, physics, and all that good stuff. We want the skeleton. So click on that and open it up. In the bottom jaw here, go ahead and right click that. And then just do add socket. It'll give you a socket named bottom jaw socket. Just leave that as is. But you might want to copy that name. It's right here. If you want, you can change it. I like to leave it as is. So it'll let's actually here. I'll just redo that from fresh. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so bottom jaw, right click, add socket. There it is. So we need to see how the food's gonna line up with this socket, and the socket is just something that when you create like a new mesh component, like an object or something that you want to attach to the character, it'll attach to that socket. So maybe in a game like Phasmophobia, the head lamp, there's a head socket that lamp attaches to. Or in World of Warcraft, the your weapons and your armor, they all have sockets, so those things socket onto your character. It's kind of the same thing. So what we're gonna do, uh, we want to see how it's gonna look in the animation. So first, if we go to preview animation, type in eat, select the eat animation, and let's kind of pause that, pull it back, and then go to right about here, because that's going to be where it's really showing when he's kind of throwing it into the back of his throat, really. And to see how it's going to look, we're going to right click, and okay, this is a UE bug. I don't know if or when they're going to fix it, but I'll show you how to fix it. It's going to look really bad in a second here. Don't worry, this is unfortunately a bit normal. So add preview asset, type in meat for the meat that we made, and we're going to have a giant chunk of meat. I don't know why it does this. It happens to a lot of people. It's a import error of sorts between UE and Blender. Just, you know, if you have an answer for it, great. If you don't, then all you got to do to fix this is go over here, relative scale, and do 0.01. Copy that, and then just paste that into these, and that'll fix it. Not sure why it does that. It's very annoying. It might just be, it's something about using Blender, and I don't know. So let's rotate that a little bit. Let's do it -90, and we'll rotate it up a bit. And then if I hit W, so we hit E, it goes to rotation. If I hit, I think it's R, it goes into scale, and if I hit W, it goes into the arrows. It's a movement, and then pull it forward, lift it up a little bit, maybe get a little bit more rotation like so, and let's see how that looks. So we go, so let's see here, he grabs a bite there, that's where it pops up, and he goes like this, and he would throw it into his throat, and this is where it would move down into his throat. We're going to do a little animation to do that. So we just need the part from the bite up to here. That looks good. Okay, so remember this is called bottom jaw socket. You might want to copy that. Hit save. Don't worry that this preview is a preview, so it's not going to show up in gameplay. It's only going to show up when you're previewing it. If it annoys you that it's there, just right click on the socket itself, not the preview, but the socket, and then just do remove all attached assets. So we're going to go to our main character again, and then I have a new. So on the get food, we have on consume here. We're gonna add that component there. So that little meat piece, that mesh, that's just gonna spawn, and it's gonna attach, and it's gonna disappear. That's a static mesh component. Okay. Component is just something that attaches to a main actor. So for that, we're gonna do something just in the get food again. Right click, add static mesh component. Make sure you select that. For the transform, just drag out and just get actor transform. It's just our location, our scale, our rotation, all that stuff. It's just kind of compacted into that. We're just gonna plug it in because we want to kind of spawn where we are. And it's not a huge deal because we're actually gonna do something where we snap the location. We snap that mesh to that bone socket that we just made, that bottom jaw socket. So take this, take the value here, pull it out, promote to variable, and name that food mesh. And this is where we're just going to store a reference to that. And then we want to go over here. So we want to get our interact object, whatever we're interacting with, like say a piece of meat that we're eating, right? You're going to pull off that and then do get component by class. Right, so get component by class, this one here. For the drop down, again, so we know this is going to be a static mesh component that we're attaching, right? So that's what we need. We need to get the mesh out of that. So whatever mesh this object has, let's just grab a copy of that here, static mesh component. Well, rather, it's a reference to it. So we're going to get a reference to that mesh because we want this to be versatile. We just said, like, spawn a meat. We don't know if it's a meat. It might be intestines or whatever. So we're just going to get whatever mesh that has. And then from there, we're going to get the static mesh right there. So the static mesh component is the component that holds the mesh. And we want to get to the actual mesh itself from that component. And we're going to go from food mesh. We're going to do set static mesh. So basically, we're taking this food mesh that we just created, this component. We're setting the mesh on that component to the mesh from this component. So set static mesh. Drag that into there, and there you go. Then last, we're gonna do attach component to a component. Again, you can see it by the titles here. Attach component to component. You want it to be mesh. Make sure it's the mesh, right? This one right there. And then the parent. Make sure mesh is plugged into parent. So this is our skeletal mesh. It's a parent that we're going to attach this new meat chunk mesh to, which is the target. For the socket, if you remember on our skeleton, that socket here, bottom jaw socket, so you want it to match perfectly in capitalization, spaces, everything. So you can just copy that, paste it in here. And then for location rules, all these need to be snapped to, so that they're going to snap it directly to that bone socket. And then from there, we're going to do swallow food. And I don't believe we made this function yet, so go ahead and create a new function. Just click here, call swallow food, attach it here to the end of this. So you can just where is it? Drag. Oh, I think I made it an event. Actually, hold on, it's not a function. Yes, it's an event. Okay, my bad. Ignore what I just said. So go into your event graph, right? The reason this is an event, not a function, is because we need a timeline. A timeline can only be on the event graph as part of an event. It cannot be in a function. That's why. So right click, do custom event, name it swallow food. Go back over here to get food really quick. Just make sure you plug it in. So if you don't, it's not going to show up here because it's not a function. It will show up here in the event graph. So you can grab and drag it like so, plug it in. Make sure that's there. So, okay, go back to your event graph here. So for a timeline, you right click, and a timeline basically just kind of transitions, it feeds out data over time, over a period of time, that you can use to update something kind of seamlessly and nice and smooth and in like a transitional state, right? So do timeline. You're just gonna click add timeline like so. Double click that. Go up here and click track. We're gonna add a vector. A vector is basically our location. Let's just call this location up. Let's just call it location. That's fine. For the length, I found. Gosh, what was it on the actual timeline? Oh, let me go back over there. So on the actual timeline that I have, I found point 0.5. So 0.5, half. Basically, it's there for. It takes about half a second for this timeline to finish. So from the start of the timeline to the end of the timeline, it takes about a half a second, which is really kind of all we need. Because if you notice during that swallow here, I mean, we're just running it right basically from here, the bite point, which is what, like, about 22-ish, we'll say 22, to about, actually 7, yeah, we're about 22 to about 38. So about a half a second or so is it works out for me. You can adjust it if you want, but that's fine. So 0.5, and then you want to, if you shift click, it'll make a what's it called? A key. So it'll make a key. Click on that key and just for time do 0. A key is just like, this is our starting point, or this is a point to reach. It's a keyframe. It's, if you want to learn about keyframes, just look it up. It's an animation thing usually, but it's a keyframe. And the value is going to be 0. So we're not feeding anything in at the start of the timeline. It's going to well, I'll explain that in a minute actually. So it's not we're starting with nothing. We're not doing anything at the very beginning. But by the end, let's do another point. So shift and then just click. By the end of it, so 0.5, that's 0.5. We're doing a value of, what was it? Of -5. Which means we're going to have it move back -5. So -5. Okay. Actually, was this, you know what? I'm so out of it because I'm sick. Let me check something really quick. Okay, yeah, okay. So we're going to do that -5. And if you can click here and here, that'll kind of organize it better. So if it's like this and it looks funny, just click here and here and that'll kind of pull into view. And that's all you gotta do, just compile and save it. Right? Go back into your event graph here. So I don't actually even need this. But so now that you've got your timeline in, you want to go from your event, play from start, and then from update, we're gonna get our food mesh. That's the mesh that we made in get food here. Or get food, we make that component. So we're making this. Now we're getting that. So go up here to components, drag food mesh, get, and then drag off of that. And you want to do add. Do not do set. Do add relative location. They'll give you this. Make sure you have teleport selected. And then from here, the location update, we're going to go into delta. So basically, every time this ticks, we're going to move from that 0 to 5. We're going to slowly add, however long it takes to add within this 0.5 seconds. We're going to add until we have added a total of -5 over time. Okay, so this is going to smoothly update that, and then we'll be able to, it'll show that meat kind of like it's moving down his throat, like he's swallowing it. So the last thing we're going to do with the food mesh here, we want to clear it out. We don't want to just keep it there. So after he swallowed it, we want it to disappear. So let's go into here, and then in our eat animation, not the eat movement, but our eat animation, we have eat start, eat bite, eat end. So at the end of eat bite, At the end of eat bite is when we want to have the mesh disappear. We want it to show up during eat bite. That's when we first see it. And we want it to disappear at eat end. Okay. So in our animation blueprint, let's go into our event graph here. At the end of eat end, we want that to disappear. So we're going to add something called clear food mesh. It's another function. So in our master character, add another function, call it clear food. Open that up. And we're just going to get that food mesh here. Get this. And we're just going to set it to nothing. So remember, this is technically not the mesh. This is the component, the static mesh component that holds the mesh. So if we set the mesh to nothing, then it will basically just clear it. So set static mesh. That's it. Don't put anything here. And that'll just basically wipe it out. And then you go from there. And you grab it, drag it off, clear it. Right there. And that's it. Should work just fine. So let's test it out. We got our baby. Let's go have a bite. So let's eat some meat. We're gonna hit E. You can see it. See, he's ripping it off, and it actually looks like he's swallowing it. Look at that. You can adjust the animation timeline if you want. You can adjust where the notifies are for this, but I think this looks really good. It actually looks like he's genuinely eating it. And then for the intestines, it's going to probably look a little more funny. We'll probably give some kind of cloth physics or something to these so that they look more malleable. But you can see he's kind of... That one looks a little bit more silly. Yeah, we might add some... we'll probably add some physics and stuff to that. But the regular meat looks a lot better. The intestines is a bit silly looking because they're a bit too big. And we'll probably just, honestly... I think they just need to be shrunken down a bit, but that's fine. They're a bit too big. But yeah, that's a start. It's not bad. We'll just have to shrink down those intestines a bit so the mesh isn't going all over the place. And we'll probably add... We might add physics to it. I don't know. I know that in the aisle there's a lot of physics going on, but I also think that's probably half the issue with the lag and stuff like that people are having. Like, if you're having physics running and that physics is replicating all over the damn place, like, that's a lot of resources. That's a lot for just flesh chunks. Like, it's a lot. So we might, we're gonna see. We might, at the very least, we'll probably do it for the intestines. I don't know if we'll do it for the other pieces, because while we do want to replicate it, we want to do it in a way that is a bit more, hardware friendly, if you will, and less likely to cause problems. So we need to keep things like that in mind, and we are going to go over what the limitations are. See, that food just decayed. But, let's fill up our tummy a bit. That looks good, though, doesn't it? That looks great. It's just, yeah, there are certain things that you really have to think about, and especially in larger open, kind of semi-open world. Just a large map like that with so much graphics and so many, and players and stuff, like, you really need to think about what is actually optimal. And sometimes you need to give and take a little bit. You can't have everything or you have problems, but we'll see. So we'll go over that, we'll figure it out. Yeah, so everything looks good. Turn nice and smoothly and all that good stuff. Run around. Yeah. So it's coming along, we've got that part, and next we're going to hit up interfaces. I will try to go over that pretty quick here. This might be a longer video, I don't know, because I'm kind of combining a couple things, but interfaces are important, so that's next. Let's do that. So, interfaces are really simple and yet kind of complicated. When we are doing something like in our master character, right? When we are, let's say in, I think it's in get food. Yeah, so in get food, we're doing cast to BP food item. BP food item is a master class, which means we're going to have children classes coming off of that. Some of those classes, for example, might be like the intestines, maybe some other kind of meat, berries, whatever. It could be any kind of food item, right? if we are casting to our master class, so casting causes kind of a dependency hierarchy in which when you cast to something, it's gonna load it's gonna basically, how do I put it? It is in a very, very basic sense, and I'm sure this is gonna annoy somebody with how I'm describing this, but this is the best I can do for layman's. It is going to kind of load into the game anything that is associated or dependent from this class. So if I cast to food item, I'm going to load in everything from berries to meat to intestines to whatever food object that is associated with that. It's not going to be visible, but it will be loaded into the game. That can create a resource clog, right? It can create tons of crap being loaded that we don't actually need just because it's associated. So casting is fine when you don't have classes that have this dependency issue, this dependency situation. But or especially if you have a class that has like component classes onto it, like other actors, like a character might have an inventory actor on it, and maybe you want to pull something from that inventory without actually loading up the whole character too. I mean that's unlikely to happen because it's obviously going to be loaded if you're getting its inventory. But my point is, uh, dependency hierarchies are not always a problem, but when there are master classes of something, it's probably going to be a problem. To get around this, and also to make calls a little bit easier, more dynamic, instead of casting just to get this on consume, you would use an interface. So we're going to make the interface. So we're going to go into our main. First of all, let's make the interface for our food item. So let's see, or do we want to make it for our interact? No, let's make it for our food item. So we're gonna right click. We're gonna go blueprint, and we're going to go to blueprint interface. Click on that, and do BPI blueprint interface underscore food item. That way we know that this is the interface for food item. So save that. We're gonna first, so we have that made. We're gonna open that up. But before we really start getting into it, I've got so much junk here open. I'm so bad about that. Before we start going crazy on this, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna open up our food item. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add that interface to this food item so we can access things, right? We're gonna move some stuff around. So we go to our class settings here, and then you want to go over here where it says interfaces, implemented interface here, add, and then BPI food item. This will automatically give us access to that and tie those together. And what that's going to do is any functions that we put into our interface cannot store data like variables, just functions. And we're going to kind of use it to reference the functions in the actual character, or in the actual food item. So any functions here will become kind of universal that we can call to in food item. So you see my functions, I don't really have any functions here listed, right? But let's say I wanted to do decay tick, okay? So what I would do is to access this from the blueprint, from the interface, we're going to go into the interface here. Let's see, it's called decay tick. So I like to kind of have keywords that let me know that this is an interface call specifically. And when it's an event or something like that, I like to name it, so we already have a default function. Let's double click, let's click that, right click, rename. I like to name it trigger. So trigger decay tick, which is basically saying trigger that decay tick function. We're not actually going to touch input, output, any of this. It's just a trigger. We don't have to actually do anything else here. There's also going to kind of be like get and kind of things like that, like get and update and stuff like that. But right now, we just want a trigger. So back in our actual food item, if we see we have this tab here now called interfaces. We click that. There it is. There's our trigger. So you would get that, open that up, and then it'll automatically just drops it as this function onto food item. So let's move that up here. And then for decay tick, we don't even need that. We just plug that in there. This means if I wanted, I can call decay tick without ever casting to it. So let's oh, we have a oops, gotta replace that guy over there. Trigger decay tick. Make sure we replace that. So if I went into my master character, so let's say I wanted to call on decay tick. So instead of having to cast here to get to that function, all I gotta do, right there, trigger decay tick, it makes it universal. I don't need to actually cast to it, which means that there are other food items, I'm not loading those up. I'm just calling it, I'm basically saying, hey, if you have this interface that has this, if you have this interface, BPI, then use this function. If you don't, it's just not going to do anything. It's not going to return anything back. Okay? So, from food item, we want to do on consume. We're going to replace that one. Which I guess we should have just done that, but that's fine. It's not a big deal. So, on consume, right here, we're going to feed in character. That means we need an input on that trigger function, right? Character. And we know what kind. It's going to be BP character type. So let's go back into our interface, add function. We're going to call it trigger on consume. And then for input here, just like the actual function, character. And for the type, master, it's going to be BP character master object reference. Compile, save. So go back into blueprint here for the food item, and here it is. So double click that, and there you go. We're just gonna move that up to here, and if you hold control, and grab this, you can drag it like so, plug it right into there. So we're just gonna get rid of on consume. There we go. And now we've got that interface call so that it's not gonna not gonna load a bunch of junk. It's just gonna call to that one thing, and it's a lot more resource optimal when we have this masterclass kind of stuff that we're doing. Alright. So back to our character. We don't have on consume anymore. But it's fine, we don't need either of these. We're just gonna do on consume. Trigger on consume. And again, and look how much less code this is now. It's just that one thing. I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to cast anything. And then we're going to make sure that's still connected right over here. Or actually, no, this was the self. Yeah, get the self. My bad. So let's just take that and make a copy over here so we're not stretching it out. Right? So that's how that looks. It's nice and simple, and you can call this on consume from anywhere without ever having to cast to it. It's really, really great. Okay, so let's see here. So let's see if we have any more casts. Let's go down to here, our search. Just type cast. Okay, so the controller we do want. That's fine. Don't worry about that. But I think that's the only cast we have in here. And then let's go to our food item. I know we have some casts to the character too. Let's see. For the character, I don't think we... Well, yeah, let's just do it. Yeah, okay. So for the character, right click, again, blueprint, blueprint interface. And this basically just means that if when we are trying to get some data or send something or find something with that character, we're not loading literally every single type of character in the game. If I just want this raptor over here, I'm not loading literally every type of character possible in the game for no reason whatsoever, right? So BPI, and again, name it after that master class, because if you don't, you're gonna get lost quickly. So open up the character. Let's make sure we save that first. Yeah, just go ahead and hit compile and save. So we are back to the character. In class settings there, go to implement interfaces, BPI underscore character master, compile, and save. So let's see what food item is calling over here. I know that's casting to it. Let's see what it's casting here. Or maybe it's not food item that casts to. I thought it did. Yeah, it wasn't here. Which was the one that actually was casting to the character? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, so object. Let's go to the interact master. There we go. Right, so other character. Okay, here's a cool one. So other actor, we want to make sure it's a character master, right? Well, instead of casting to it, now we don't have a function we're calling, we're just checking if it's a character master type. But even if we don't have a function or anything like that, there's another thing we can use the interface for that is awesome to double check this without casting. And all we got to do is does implement interface. The interface is BPI character master. So there you go. That's all you need. So instead of actually casting, we're just going to do does it have this interface? Because if it does, well, obviously it's a character. So if it implements that interface, and then here, yeah, so we are going to get a variable which is interact master. So let's go back into BPI character master, which actually we might not even need that does implement interface, but hey, now you know about it. So let's see, rename that. We'll call this get interact object. Again, this is in our BPI character master, char master. Get interact object. So for this one, we want an output, because we're going to output something, which is going to be what that object is. So we need to make sure the parameter that the type, let's see, interact object here. We need to make sure that the type is correct. So make sure you double check that. It's going to be right here. It's an actor type. Okay. So make sure you go actor, object reference, compile, and save. So if we go back into our master character, this is actually going to give us a little function we're going to get into. So just double click this, it'll open it. And all you got to do is get your interact object, drag that in, plug it in. That's it. Compile, save. So then in our interact master here, so actually we don't even need this. But this is good. If you're trying not to get a variable, you're just trying to cast to check if something is a thing, then a really good way is just to does implement interface. So, but yeah, we don't actually need that right now. So then we're just going to do get interact object. The next thing we're going to do is it valid? Is there an interact object here? Make sure you're doing the question one. If it is valid, we're going to get it. And we are going to, again, just basically check if it is equal to ourself here. And if it is, since we are obviously ending the overlap and we're clearing it out, we're going to get that actor. And instead of getting it, we're going to set it. So back in our BPI, add function, set interact object. And this time we want an input. It's already an actor. interact object, compile, save, and then we're going to get rid of this, and we're just going to go from here. Let's lower this a little bit so we can pull off of it and it's not going to be so messy. Reroute, nice and pretty, and then we're just going to set interact object. So you see that at no point do we have to cast to that character and load up a bunch of crap we don't want. We're going to set it to nothing. Right? This is going to be nothing. Then to make sure that this is populating correctly, go back into our character master. We're going to have that here in our interfaces. Set. And for our set interact, we are just going to take interact object. If you drag it into here, automatically does that. And it's going to set it. So we could set this from anywhere now without having to cast to this master character. Okay. So then let's do this last one up here. And here we're just doing set interact object. So let's just copy this. Other actor is the target. And we are setting it to self. We don't need this. We don't need this. Just this. That's all we're doing. It makes it so much easier with those interfaces, and it's so much cleaner, and we don't have to worry about loading up a whole bunch of junk into our system without needing it. This will have a very significant impact on performance when you're doing a kind of class hierarchy thing like this. It'll be huge impact. So we've got that cast. I don't think we have any other casts. Nope, we don't. So yeah, I think that's it. We don't have any other casts here, right? Yeah, we don't have any other casts in the food. We've got the skeleton there. So we got get and set. And we can just keep adding stuff here. Get, set, trigger. Basically, that's kind of the gist of it. We don't have any casts in here anymore. Close that. It's the food. Don't think we have any casts in here. I think we already checked. Yeah, no casts here. And then the only cast here was to the controller, which is fine. That's perfectly fine. We don't need to worry about that. Okay. So we've gotten rid of all of those unnecessary casting, and we've set our kind of foundation for the future of how we're going to access things and update stuff without ever having to do that casting. Again, casting isn't the devil. It has uses, but for a hierarchy-based class system like this, which is what you really kind of want to aim for in a game of this nature, you really want to use your interfaces. So we've got our interfaces in. We've done a ton of optimization in that regard. We've cleaned up we fixed our stamina things, so none of that's running off a tick. We can eat chunks of food now. They're spawning. We might need to. We're gonna go over whether or not we want to give some kind of maybe cloth physics to these. At least maybe to the intestines. We'll see. Maybe to the meat. But we'll see what we want to do as far as physics. There's a lot of ways you could do the physics for this. And I'm gonna try a few things, and I'll get back to you guys on kind of what feels both performant, but also looks good from there. And I'll probably shrink this down a little bit because those are kind of big. Okay, so I think that's it for now. Like I said, I am sick and blah. Sorry if I'm kind of wonky in this video, but we'll get into more later. We've got tons more stuff to do. We got to get the health system together and combat, water drinking stuff. But we've actually gotten like a huge chunk of stuff done, and we're doing pretty well. Alright, so I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for joining me, and bye-bye.